All right, and we are live. Welcome everyone to Spill the Tea in 10. We are here answering the questions that you have submitted previously in a quick 10-minute session for tips for proficiency-oriented world language teachers. So if that's you, welcome to the party. Here we are. Our question today is a question that, frankly, I get all of the time and that everybody gets all the time, and we are all wondering, and that is, how can I get started with proficiency when everything feels like it's important? How do I start using CI oriented tools, materials, methods, everything when there's so much to do that I can't even process all of it? Blah, a lot of overwhelm. So let's get started with this. Today, I have 3 tips for you so that you can actually get started with this tomorrow. Now, don't be under the impression that undertaking the journey of moving towards proficiency is by any means something that happens overnight, because it ain't. But the truth is that there are small steps that you can take that will give you momentum and enough little delicious tastes of what it's like to have a well-oiled, proficiency-oriented machine-like classroom that will make you hungry to start putting more and more pieces onto your foundation so that you can eventually build a really strong house with it. So let's get started with these here. First of all, if you are new around here, welcome. My name is Devin, and I am the teacher author behind La Libre Language Learning. And my focus is to help make your journey to proficiency a lot more practical. So that's why I wanted to tackle this question that honestly is the focus of an entire course and membership that I teach. It's true. It's stuff that takes people years to even dive into. But I want to give you 3 quick tips for things that if you just want to figure out if this is even for you, if you even just want to test out the hype, try these things tomorrow and see how they go. All right, so here's the first one. The first one for you, if you want to get started with a proficiency-oriented pathway, method, instruction, whatever you want to call it, the first thing I recommend that you do is have a conversation with your students tomorrow with a plan in mind that you will talk to them for about 3 minutes if you've never done it before, 5 minutes if you have, in the target language. And here's how you're going to set up these parameters, because you have to do this first if you want it to be successful. Talk to them about the expectations and the relationship between the student and the teacher, and why this is a 50-50 thing and why it's a conversation, even if they don't say anything back to you. That's why you need to kind of prep them for what's about to happen in the 5 minutes that you deliver them high quality input. So what you're going to do is ask them to talk about what are things that help them feel comfortable in a classroom environment, like a teacher who's responsive to questions, a teacher who helps them when they ask for it, blah, 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 blah. And like, get all those out of the way and make sure that you know exactly what they're looking for from you, because you'll learn a lot about that. And then ask them, well, what do you think a student's job is? Because we're about to have a conversation that's 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, what have you, in the target language. So what do you think your responsibilities should be? Without you laying them out on the board, you'll be surprised that students probably already know what their expectations should be. Things like listening, following you with their eyes, paying attention, letting you know when they don't understand, being brave enough to help other people who aren't understanding, or maybe asking for a clarification on a specific word, responding when you ask for responses, those types of things. They'll probably be able to give you those. And then you come in with the final hurrah of making sure that they understand that you have a very important role in this, but that it's not as I like to call it the guardian of knowledge, that you're actually the conversation facilitator. So you are one part of a two-way street. And your job is to make sure in the classroom, when you're in a world language setting, that students feel comfortable saying that they don't understand what you're saying. They also are able to tell you when to slow down or when you need to repeat something. So make it very clear that that is your job in the conversation that is about to happen, to make sure that everybody feels hunky-dory and that conversation moves at a really nice pace so that everybody understands. Because the number one fear that students have is not understanding anything, and that, or that even if they do understand, it'll be too fast for them. So set up these conversation parameters and then just try talking to your students about something simple. Pick something that is in whatever you're already studying. If you're studying daily routines, talk to them about your daily routine. And in those conversation pieces, this is the part where you might not actually get a lot of conversation back from them or a lot of responses from students about their own personal daily routine. You're going to ask them if they understand the things that you're saying about your daily routine. What does that look like? You're going to ask them questions like, so students, what do I do first? Do I get up or do I brush my teeth first? What do I do next? Like, do I give the dog a bath or do I drink tea? Do I, do I set a car on fire or do I go to work? And add a little bit of like funkiness, a little interest in there so that they're hearing lots of repetitions of your daily routine, while also they're having to make sure that they're showing you comprehension and they get a couple laughs along the way, as well as you're getting a great deal of information from them about how the pace of conversation is going, whether they understand things. And then after this conversation happens, have a debrief. As soon as the conversation is over, ask students to take out a sheet of paper and write down their immediate impressions of how did that feel. For example, like, oh, that was really fast. Or, hey, I understood a lot of that. Or, I didn't feel comfortable talking, but I understood a lot of it. Or, I think I'm ready to respond to some things. And ask them to just give you one sentence. And then on the way out of class, put it in a bin. And sometime during your planning, just rifle through and see what the responses are. The next day, tell students what the responses were in the basket. Looking at it, you'll be able to see that overwhelmingly, your responses will be positive. But that since it's anonymous, if you're asking them to just write a quick sentence about how things went, that you'll get a lot of very honest feedback from students about that was, I don't know, things were going really fast, or we went over a lot of vocabulary that we haven't seen yet, or I had to guess a lot of the times or rely on your gestures. I didn't understand what you were saying, or that was really slow. I'm actually ready for more. You will get a lot of good quality feedback from just this simple exercise of asking students on a sheet of paper how things went. Now, keep it short the first time that you do this, 5 minutes, 3 minutes if you've never done it before, because it's the beginning of the year for a lot of y'all at the time of this recording, or 10 minutes if you're in maybe an upper level and it's been a long time since they've had a long sustained conversation, but you know that they're ready for the vocabulary. The next day, talk to them about their results. This is step 2 in this process, or actually step 3, because step 2 is getting their reactions via those paper slips and exit slips. Step 3 is debrief with them the next day really quickly, 5 minutes, like while they're doing their warm-ups. Put a couple sample answers on the board. You can either type them out if you want to, write them on, with an expo marker, or you can even just like pick a few out from the basket, save yourself some prep time, and just read them and say, these were the most common things that I heard. Would you agree? Does anybody want to talk a little bit more about how things went for you? Blah, 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 and have just a quick 10-minute debrief. And then with the feedback, try the same thing again, maybe even about the same topic. But follow it up this time with a follow-up activity. So this is the final big hurrah, that if you have never done a a comprehensible input-oriented activity, or you are new to proficiency-oriented instruction, or you just need a new activity, any of those things, lo que sea, this is a great thing to add to your toolbox. Is after you've had this conversation with students, let's just keep going with the example of a daily routine, ask students now to map out your daily routine. And if you can, make it a little ridiculous. So you could say things like, like if you're a woman, you could say like, oh, I shave my face. Or I remember that one time we were teaching about Frida, and one of the things is we shave our eyebrows, like the unibrow in the middle every day. Like you can do all kinds of ridiculous things that still fit within the student's vocabulary that they're currently studying. And then after you ask students to map out what they heard in the conversation, you could even have that conversation again if you want. And mapping out, quote unquote, could be a lot of different things. You could ask them to pretend to be you and write it in a first person and maybe draw a silly picture of you with a little bubble, like a thought bubble. Or they could draw little stick figure pictures of you as you go through these daily routine things. If you don't want to make it a writing exercise and you just want to check if they understand what's going on, you could totally do that. Students can do a 10-minute stick figure drawing of 6 different things in 10 minutes. I used to do it all the time in class. You could also do things like having students put the events in order in English, whatever you want to do to check for understanding and map that out. Then, using those same phrases, see if students can start to make a really, really short version, input-based, contextualized input-based. You're not just throwing them to the dogs and asking them to write about their daily routine all of a sudden out of a blue when you've only given them 2 or 3 repetitions of each of these phrases. But this would be the last activity that I would recommend, is then ask students to, okay, cool. Now we're going to talk about your daily routine. Can you give me 3 things that you have in common with me? That means that in context, they're looking at the daily routines that they just mapped out from your daily routine. Like, oh, I brush my teeth. Como señora Gunning. I brush my teeth. Or I brush my hair. Comme prof Gunning. That way, you don't have to give them a new sheet. You don't have to write out new vocabulary. They're just talking about the things that you have in common with them. And those are 3 days worth of activities that you can do with 0 prep, very, very little prep, with just stuff that you're coming up with off the top of your head. You might be thinking to yourself, none of those are the activities that I read about or have heard about in any of the conferences. Dang straight, you are right. And I'm proud to run a conference every year for comprehensible input-oriented teachers. But here's the truth, that if you want this to be a sustainable practice in your classroom and something that you can rely on every day to provide quality input for your class, it's far more about having simple activities that you can go to again and again and again that provide quality input and meaningful, scaffolded opportunities for output that allow for students to work with the language, to use the language in meaningful ways and talk about stuff that matters to them, stuff that's interesting to them. It doesn't have to be anything crazy fancy. That's really the difference between somebody who is staying up till 10 p.m. every night, trying to put together a clip chat with all the right screenshots at the right moment. And of course, you're only going to last 2 months doing that. Or somebody who says, this is how much time that I have, and it's already way too much time at school, but I still want to try this proficiency thing out. So why don't I try a few simple activities? Since I don't have a lot of materials, these are some things that I can do with very few extra copies, very few new things in my toolkit. This is stuff that I can just start using tomorrow. Small steps, small ways to get feedback from your students about whether this is working for them, about whether you're giving them the quality input that they need, about, are they keeping up with your pace? Do you need to slow down? Do they need more repetitions of a certain phrase or structure? Like when you start using reflexives with your daily routine stuff, are they like floored by it, even though you've gone over it 3 or 4 times? Then you know, okay, this is where I need to hone in on. People get really intimidated by the idea of speaking with their class and having a conversation with their class. But if you want to dive into this and just get started, try these 3 simple activities because they will not only be really good quality time and input with your class, but they're really simple to use. They don't require a ton of prep or really that much paper or even anything, frankly. You could just do this off the top of your head if you wanted to. And the best part about it is that if this works really well for you, you could build on it and elaborate it into a much bigger, better lesson in the future. Thanks so much for being here for Spill the Tea in 10 minutes. I hope you had a fun drink with you today. Mine was boba tea. This week I really needed a treat. It's been a very busy week in like the best of ways, but I was like, I need some boba tea in my life. So let me know, how was this session for you? Did you learn something? I hope so. And make sure that you come back every Wednesday at 4 p.m. EST because we do this every week over in this Facebook group, or if you're catching this on YouTube, I'll see you in the future life. But for now, have a great rest of your week, and I cannot wait for you to come back, comment below, and let me know how these 3 simple ideas work for you. Try it tomorrow, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.